My name is Ethan Cole, and for about 4 years I worked the overnight shift as a night auditor at a mid-sized hotel in downtown Vancouver. If you've never worked nights in a hotel, the job sounds easy. On paper, it is. You check guests in if anyone arrives late. You run financial reports for the day. You answer the occasional phone call. And for the most part, you sit alone at the front desk while the city sleeps. But the thing about hotels is that they never really sleep. People arrive at strange hours. Drunk guests wander the halls. Arguments break out in rooms. And every once in a while, something happens that makes you realize how little you actually know about the people staying under your roof. The hotel I worked at wasn't fancy, but it wasn't cheap either. 6 floors, about 90 rooms, mostly business travelers, airline crews, and tourists. My shift started at 11:00 p.m. and ended at 7:00 a.m. After midnight, the lobby usually turned into this strange in-between space. Too late for normal guests, too early for the morning crowd. Just quiet humming lights, the occasional elevator ding, and the soft clicking of my keyboard while I balanced the day's accounts. I got used to the silence. Until room 507. The first time it happened was in early November. It was raining outside, the kind of steady Vancouver rain that makes the streets look like mirrors under the streetlights. Around 2:13 a.m., I was finishing the nightly audit report when the system made a soft notification sound. A new reservation. That wasn't unusual. People booked rooms late all the time. But what caught my attention was the check-in time. 2:15 a.m., same day arrival. I opened the reservation. Room 507. Booked online through our direct website. One night stay. Paid in full. No special requests. Name, David L. Harrow. I glanced up at the lobby doors. No one there. Usually when people book that late, they're already outside or on their way. So I printed the registration form and waited. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. Still no one. I checked the parking lot cameras. Empty except for a couple of cars that had been there since earlier that evening. Eventually, I figured maybe the guy changed his mind. It happened sometimes. Guests would book a room just to have the option and then never show up. Technically, since it was prepaid, we still checked them in automatically after the audit. So around 3:00 a.m., I assigned the key card and marked the reservation as checked in. Room 507 was officially occupied, even though no one had walked through the door. I didn't think much of it, at least not that night. The next night was quiet, but the night after that, at 2:09 a.m., the system chimed again. Another reservation, room 507. Same name, David L. Harrow. One night, paid online. My first thought was maybe the guy had stayed the previous night and liked the room. But when I pulled up the history, something didn't make sense. The system showed the previous reservation as checked in, but never checked out, which meant housekeeping should have cleaned it. But the room status still showed vacant dirty, meaning housekeeping hadn't touched it yet. That was strange. Housekeeping always cleaned every room on the list, even if the guest was a no-show. Still, it wasn't my department. Maybe someone missed it. So again, I waited. 2 o'clock passed. 3. No one arrived. Just like the previous time. At 3:05 a.m., I checked the reservation in automatically. Room 507 was occupied again, by someone who hadn't entered the building. The third night is when things started feeling wrong. I remember it clearly because it was a Saturday, which meant the hotel was nearly full. Around 1:58 a.m., the lobby was completely silent. The elevators had stopped running for a while. Most guests were asleep. Then the system chimed. Another reservation. I didn't even have to check the details. Room 507. Same name. Same one-night stay. Same check-in time. 2:15 a.m. This time I frowned. 3 nights in a row. Same room. Same guest. Never arriving. I pulled up the security cameras and switched through them. Front entrance. Side entrance. Parking garage. Elevators. Nothing. No one. But the reservation was paid. and our system automatically assigned the same room number if the guest requested it before, which meant one thing: whoever was booking this was choosing room 507 intentionally. Around 2:40 a.m., I decided to call the room, just in case someone had somehow entered earlier. The phone rang 3 times. Then it stopped, but no one answered. I shrugged and hung up. Still, something about it bothered me. So I opened the CCTV feed for the 5th floor hallway. Room 507 sat near the end of the corridor. The camera covered the entire hallway. The door was visible. I watched the feed for a few minutes. Nothing. No movement. No doors opening. No one walking down the hallway. Room 507 stayed closed the entire time, which meant if someone was inside, they had never walked past the camera, and the only way to reach that room was through that hallway. By the 4th night, I was actually waiting for it. At 2:11 a.m., the notification popped up. Room 507. Same name. Same booking. I leaned back in my chair. Okay, I muttered to myself. Now I was curious, because this wasn't just a weird coincidence anymore. This was a pattern. I checked the room status again. Still vacant dirty, meaning housekeeping had still not cleaned it. For days. No cleaning. No guests seen entering. But the system showed it as occupied each night. That shouldn't happen. Housekeeping should have flagged it. So I grabbed the radio and called the security guard who worked nights with me. His name was Marcus. Marcus, I said, can you check something for me? What's up? Room 507. Has anyone reported cleaning it this week? There was a pause. Then Marcus said, hold on. A minute later he came back. Housekeeping says it's been empty. Empty? I said. Yeah, but the system shows someone staying there every night. Another pause. That's weird. Can you go up and check? Marcus sighed. Man, it's 2 in the morning. Please. A minute later I saw him on the security camera heading into the elevator. I switched to the 5th floor camera. The elevator opened. Marcus stepped out, walked down the hallway, stopped in front of room 507. He knocked. Nothing. He tried the handle. Then he turned toward the camera and shrugged. Over the radio he said, door's locked. Can you open it with the master key? Another pause. Then I heard the beep of the key card through the radio. The door opened. Marcus stepped inside. For about 10 seconds, there was silence. Then Marcus said something that made the back of my neck tighten. Ethan, yeah, you might want to come up here. My stomach sank. Why? Marcus hesitated. Then he said quietly, this room isn't empty. I didn't like the way Marcus said it. Not loud, not panicked, just quiet. Ethan, you might want to come up here. When I asked what was wrong, there was a pause on the radio. Then he said, this room isn't empty. My stomach tightened. What do you mean it isn't empty? Another pause. I mean, there's stuff in here. Stuff? Yeah. He sounded confused more than scared. That somehow made it worse. I stood up from the front desk, grabbed the master key card, and walked toward the elevator. The lobby felt colder than usual. Outside, rain tapped steadily against the glass doors. The elevator ride to the 5th floor felt longer than it should have. When the doors opened, the hallway lights buzzed softly overhead. Marcus was standing in the doorway of room 507, leaning slightly inside. He looked over when he saw me. Dude, he said quietly. What? Just look. I stepped into the room, and immediately something felt off. Not dangerous, not violent, just wrong. The first thing I noticed was the bed. The sheets were wrinkled, like someone had slept in them. But housekeeping had supposedly never cleaned the room after the first reservation, which meant one of two things. Either someone had stayed there earlier in the week, or someone had been in this room recently. I looked around. The curtains were half closed. The bathroom light was on. A damp towel hung over the sink. Marcus pointed toward the desk. There's more. On the desk sat a laptop. Closed. Next to it was a half-empty bottle of water and a small black backpack. My heart started beating faster. Did you touch anything? I asked. No. Anyone come up here tonight? Nope. I walked to the door and looked at the hallway camera through the peephole. Then I pulled out my phone and opened the security app that mirrored the CCTV system. The hallway feed was still running. No one had walked down that corridor in over an hour, which meant something impossible had just happened. There was someone's belongings in this room, but no one had entered the floor. Marcus crossed his arms. "You said someone checked in tonight?" "Yeah." "Same guy?" "Yeah." "What was the name again?" "David Harrow." Marcus looked around the room again. Well, if he's here, he's not exactly hiding it. But that was the thing. It didn't feel like someone was currently staying there. The room felt abandoned, like someone had left in a hurry. I stepped toward the desk and stared at the laptop. What if he's still somewhere in the building? Marcus said, "Maybe," but I didn't believe that, because the cameras would have seen him, unless he entered earlier. But the system logs showed the reservation was made just 30 minutes ago. I opened the guest profile again on my phone. Name, David L. Harrow. Email, delharrow@mailhost.net. Mail to delharrow@mailhost.net. Phone number, blank. Address, blank. That alone was weird. Most bookings required at least a phone number, but the system sometimes allowed blank fields if the payment processed. Marcus walked into the bathroom. "Shower's still damp," he said. "How damp?" "Like someone used it today." I felt a chill crawl down my spine. That doesn't make sense. Marcus walked back out. "Well, someone definitely stayed here." "Yeah," I said quietly, "but the cameras say they didn't." We decided not to touch anything. Technically, we should have called the manager right then, but hotel managers hate being woken up at 3 in the morning for things that might just be misunderstandings. So instead, we did something simpler. We locked the room again. Marcus sealed the door with a small security strip we used when maintenance needed to check rooms. If the door opened again, the strip would tear. Then we went back downstairs. The rest of the shift dragged. I kept checking the cameras. The 5th floor hallway stayed completely empty. At 6:30 a.m., the morning front desk agent arrived. Her name was Claire. She noticed my expression immediately. "You look like you didn't sleep for 3 days," she said. "Something weird happened," I told her. I explained everything. The reservations, the repeated check-ins, the room. Claire frowned. "Did you call the guest?" "No phone number." "Email?" "Not yet." She shrugged. "Probably some guy who's been staying there all week and keeps extending his reservation online." "That's what I thought at first," I said. "But the cameras never show anyone entering." Claire laughed. "Maybe he climbs through the window." Room 507 was 5 floors up. Very funny. Still, she logged the issue and said she'd tell the manager. I went home and tried to sleep, but I kept thinking about that room, about the laptop, about the wet towel, about how someone had clearly been living there without ever entering the building. When I came back the next night, the first thing I did was check the system. Room 507, still occupied, still under the name David Harrow. I checked the housekeeping logs. The room had not been serviced again, which meant the guest had the Do Not Disturb sign on the door. But Marcus had opened it last night, and there was no sign on the door. Now I was officially confused. Around 1:30 a.m., Marcus came in for his shift again. "Anything new with the mystery guest?" he asked. "Still checked in." "Seriously?" "Yep." Marcus shook his head. "That's creepy." Then at 2:07 a.m., the notification popped up again. Another reservation. Room 507. Same name. Same one-night stay. Marcus leaned over the desk and stared at the screen. "Dude, I know. That's 5 nights now." "Yep. But the guy's already checked in." "Exactly." Which meant the system had just created a second overlapping reservation for the same room. That shouldn't happen. The software normally blocked double bookings automatically. Marcus looked up toward the elevators. "You want to check the room again?" I hesitated, then nodded. "Yeah." We rode the elevator up together. The hallway looked exactly the same as before. Silent. Empty. Marcus pointed at the door. The security strip was still intact, meaning no one had opened the door since we sealed it. Marcus frowned. "That's impossible." "Open it." He swiped the master key. The strip snapped. The door swung open. The moment we stepped inside, Marcus froze. "Ethan, what?" He pointed at the desk. The laptop was open now. I felt a cold wave move through my chest. "Did you open that yesterday?" No. Neither of us had touched it. But the laptop screen was glowing softly. And on the screen was our hotel reservation page. Room 507. Guest name, David L. Harrow. Check-in time, 2:15 a.m. Marcus whispered, "Is someone messing with us?" I slowly stepped closer. The cursor blinked inside the booking form, like someone had just finished typing. Then the page refreshed, and a new message appeared at the top. Reservation confirmed. Marcus took a step back. Okay, I officially hate this. But what scared me wasn't the laptop. It was something else. Something small. Something easy to miss. The bathroom light was off now. Yesterday it had been on. Marcus noticed it too. "You said that was on last night." "Yeah." He swallowed. "So someone's been here." "Yeah." "But the hallway camera." "I know." We both turned slowly toward the door. The hallway outside was still empty. Marcus whispered, "Ethan." "Yeah." "If someone's inside this room with us." I felt my pulse pounding in my ears. Where the hell are they? For a few seconds, neither of us moved. Marcus and I just stood there in the middle of room 507, staring around the quiet hotel room like idiots waiting for someone to jump out of the closet. But nothing happened. No sound. No movement. Just the faint hum of the air conditioner and the glow of the laptop screen. Marcus finally whispered, "Okay, I'm checking the bathroom again." "Yeah," I said quietly. He stepped toward the bathroom and pushed the door open wider. The light stayed off. The room was empty. "No one," he said. I walked toward the closet and slowly slid the door open. Empty. Just a couple extra pillows and an ironing board. Marcus turned back toward me. "Dude, if someone's in here, they're a magician." But I wasn't listening anymore, because I was staring at the laptop screen. The reservation page was still open. Room 507. Guest name, David L. Harrow. Check-in time, 2:15 a.m. And in the corner of the screen was the account email. delharrow@mailhost.net. mailto.delharrow@mailhost.net. Marcus noticed my expression. "What?" "I want to try something." "Like what?" I sat down at the desk. The laptop wasn't locked. Whoever owned it had left the system completely open. I clicked on the browser tab showing the email link. It opened a login page for the same mail provider. Marcus leaned closer. "You're not seriously going to try logging into that, are you?" "I'm curious." "Yeah, but that's illegal or something." "Probably." I stared at the screen for a second. Then I tried something stupid. I typed, "David Harrow 123. The password field shook. "Wrong." Marcus smirked. "Nice try." I tried again. "Harrow 507. "Wrong." Then I stopped, because something else caught my attention. The recent tabs. Several browser tabs were open in the background. Google searches, missing person websites, news articles. Marcus leaned over my shoulder. "What is that?" I clicked one of the tabs. A news article opened. The headline read, "Local tech consultant missing after business trip." My stomach dropped. Below the headline was a photograph. A man in his early 30s. Short dark hair. Glasses. Friendly smile. Under the photo was the name, David L. Harrow. Marcus exhaled slowly. "That's the guy." The article was from 3 weeks earlier. It said David Harrow had traveled to Vancouver for a conference and had last been seen near the downtown waterfront. Police believed he had checked into a hotel but had never returned home. Marcus rubbed the back of his neck. "Wait, what?" I kept reading. His credit card was used at several places in the city during the first 2 days of the trip, but after that, there was no activity. Marcus pointed at the screen. "Did they say which hotel?" I scrolled further. Then I saw the line that made my chest tighten. Authorities believe Harrow may have stayed at multiple hotels during his visit, though no confirmed check-in records were recovered. Marcus looked at me. "You're kidding." "Nope." We both slowly turned toward the room around us. The wrinkled bed, the backpack, the laptop. Marcus whispered, "So this missing guy stayed here?" "Looks like it. But then how the hell is he still checking in every night? I didn't have an answer, and that's when something else hit me. The reservation times. Every booking happened around 2:15 a.m. Marcus noticed it too. Why always the same time? I don't know. Maybe that's when he usually came back to the hotel. Maybe. But something about that explanation didn't feel right. Because the hallway cameras never showed him returning, which meant either the cameras were broken or he entered the building another way. Back at the desk, I opened the security system again. Marcus watched over my shoulder. Show me the building cameras. I pulled up the layout. Front entrance, side entrance, elevators, stairwells, parking garage. Marcus pointed. What about that one? The underground parking garage camera. I clicked it. The grainy black and white footage appeared. Rows of parked cars, concrete pillars, dim fluorescent lights. Marcus frowned. That camera's old. Yeah. Does it record? Supposed to. I scrolled back through the footage archive. The system stored about 10 days of recordings. Marcus leaned closer. Check the first night he booked the room. I pulled up the timestamp. November 3rd, 2:00 a.m. The footage began playing. For a while, nothing happened. Just empty parking spaces. Then at 2:14 a.m., Marcus suddenly leaned forward. Pause. I stopped the video. What? He pointed toward the far corner of the screen. A car was slowly pulling into the garage. A dark gray sedan. The car rolled past the camera and parked in a space near the back wall. Marcus squinted. Did we see that car earlier? I don't think so. The footage continued. The driver's door opened. A man stepped out. Even from the grainy camera, I could recognize the shape of the face. Marcus whispered, "That's him." The man looked exactly like the photo in the news article. David Harrow. He walked toward the elevator door in the garage. But then something strange happened. He stopped, turned around, looked back toward the entrance ramp. Marcus frowned. What's he doing? Then another car pulled into the garage. Fast. Too fast. The headlights flashed across the camera. A black SUV. The SUV stopped behind David's car. The driver's door opened. A man stepped out. The camera angle didn't show his face clearly, but he walked straight toward David. Marcus whispered, this looks bad." The two men stood near the car for a moment. It looked like they were arguing. David stepped backward. The other man moved closer. Then suddenly the man grabbed David by the jacket. The footage shook slightly as they struggled. Marcus leaned closer to the screen. Is he attacking him? It looked like it. David tried to break away. The man shoved him against the car. Then the footage froze for a second. When it resumed, David was on the ground, not moving. Marcus slowly leaned back in his chair. Oh my God. The man looked around the garage quickly. Then he grabbed David under the arms and started dragging him, but not toward the elevator, toward the far back corner of the garage, where the camera view stopped. Marcus swallowed. Ethan, I think we just watched a murder. My hands were shaking slightly. Maybe. Marcus pointed at the screen. Look. The attacker came back into view a minute later. Alone. He got into the black SUV and drove away. The garage returned to silence. Marcus whispered, "So where did he take the body?" I stared at the corner of the screen where David had been dragged. Then I slowly realized something. The direction. The corner he dragged him toward. Marcus saw it too. He turned toward me. That's below the hotel. I nodded slowly. The garage storage area. A section of the basement rarely used except for maintenance. Marcus whispered, "Ethan, yeah, if David Harrow died in this garage." I felt my chest tighten. Then who keeps booking room 507 every night? Marcus and I stared at the frozen security footage for a long time. Neither of us spoke. The image on the screen showed the empty parking garage, quiet and lifeless, like nothing had ever happened there. But we had both seen it. The black SUV. The struggle. David Harrow being dragged across the concrete floor. Marcus finally leaned back in the chair and ran both hands over his face. "We need to call the police." I nodded slowly. "Yeah." My voice sounded distant, like I was hearing someone else talk. Because the thing I couldn't stop thinking about wasn't the attack itself. It was the laptop upstairs, the one still sitting open in room 507, still connected to the hotel's reservation page, still making those nightly check-ins. Marcus grabbed the desk phone. Within 15 minutes, 2 patrol officers arrived. They took our statements separately. Marcus explained what we had seen in the security footage. I showed them the recording and the reservation history for room 507. Both officers exchanged a look when they saw the name. David Harrow, one of them said. "You've heard of him?" I asked. The older officer nodded. "Yeah, missing person case. Been circulating for a couple weeks." I swallowed. "Well, I think we just found him." The officers watched the garage footage 3 times. The second officer shook his head. "That's definitely an assault." The older one said, "Let's check that corner he dragged him to." Marcus and I led them through the back hallway that connected the lobby to the underground garage. It was just after 3:30 a.m. The building was silent. Our footsteps echoed on the concrete ramp as we walked down into the parking level. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, the exact same place from the footage. Rows of parked cars, cold air, concrete pillars. The officer pulled out a flashlight and walked toward the far back corner. Marcus and I followed slowly. That section of the garage was barely used. There was a maintenance cage back there where old furniture and supplies were stored. The officer shined his light across the floor. Then he stopped. "Hold on." I stepped closer. At first I didn't see anything. Then I noticed the dark stain, right where David had fallen in the video. The officer crouched down. "That's blood," Marcus whispered. "Jesus." The officer stood up again and pointed the flashlight toward the maintenance area. "Let's check in there." The metal gate was half open. Inside were stacks of broken chairs, cleaning carts, old mattresses, and boxes. The smell hit us before we even stepped inside. Rotting, sweet and awful. Marcus covered his nose immediately. "Oh God." The officer moved the flashlight slowly across the room. Then the beam stopped, and so did all of us. Behind a stack of old mattresses, something was lying on the floor. At first it just looked like a bundle of dark clothing, but the shape was unmistakable. A human body. Marcus turned away immediately. One of the officers stepped forward carefully and knelt beside it. He checked for a pulse out of habit, then shook his head. "Male," he said quietly. "Early 30s. I didn't need to see the face to know, but when the flashlight moved slightly, the light hit the glasses. The same glasses from the photo on the laptop screen. David Harrow. He had been here the entire time, under the hotel, less than 50 feet from the front desk where I worked every night. Within an hour, the entire building was awake. More police arrived. Detectives. Forensics. They closed off the garage and the entire 5th floor. Marcus and I sat in the empty breakfast area answering questions for what felt like forever. Most of them were about the video, but one detective kept returning to the same question. The reservations. He tapped the printed list on the table. "You're telling me someone kept booking room 507 every night under this man's name?" "Yes." "From this laptop?" "Yes." "And the laptop was inside the room the entire time?" "Yes." He leaned back. "That doesn't make sense." "I know." The detective frowned. "Did anyone else access that room?" "Not that we know of." "What about housekeeping?" "They said it was empty." Marcus added, "The door was sealed last night and the strip was still intact when we opened it." The detective looked at us carefully. "So no one entered the room?" "No. And yet the laptop was open and making reservations." "Yes." He tapped the table again. "All right." But the look on his face said he didn't believe us. Around 6:00 a.m., they finally let us go. But before I left, I walked past the elevators and looked toward the hallway leading to room 507. 2 officers stood outside the door. Yellow tape blocked the entrance. Inside that room, investigators were photographing everything. The laptop, the backpack, the desk, the bed. All the evidence left behind by a man who never checked out. I didn't sleep that day. I kept replaying the footage in my head. The SUV, the attack, the body in the maintenance room. But the thing that bothered me most was still the reservations. Who had been making them? And why? 3 days later, the answer finally came. A detective called the hotel and asked to speak with me. I met him at the station that afternoon. He placed a folder on the table. "We identified the man from the SUV," he said. "Who was it?" "Name's Kyle Brenner, financial consultant." I frowned. Did he know David? Yes. The detective opened the folder. Inside were printed emails, bank documents, contracts. Turns out Brenner and Harrow were working together on a software startup, he explained. But Harrow recently discovered that Brenner had been siphoning company money into private accounts. So he confronted him. "Looks that way." The detective nodded. "We believe Harrow came back to the hotel that night to gather his things and leave the city. But Brenner followed him." "Yes." The detective leaned back. "According to the bank records, Brenner gained access to Harrow's email and laptop after the attack." I felt my stomach tighten. "So he was the one making the reservations?" "Yes." "Why?" The detective slid another paper across the table. It was a screenshot from the hotel reservation system. Room 507. Night after night. The detective said quietly, "Because he needed the room to stay occupied." I looked up. What? If the room stayed checked in, housekeeping wouldn't enter it. The realization hit me like a punch. So the laptop wouldn't be discovered. Exactly. The detective nodded. He was coming back to the hotel late at night, using the laptop, making another reservation, and leaving again. But the cameras. Your garage camera caught him entering the first night. After that, he parked on the street and used the emergency stairwell door. My chest tightened. He was in the building the whole time. Probably every night. And we never saw him. The detective closed the folder. "We arrested Brenner yesterday." I exhaled slowly. "So it's over." The detective hesitated. "Mostly." Something about that word bothered me. "What do you mean mostly?" He looked at me carefully. "Because there's one detail we still can't explain." My stomach sank. "What?" The detective pulled out one final document. A system log from the hotel. Reservation timestamps. Room 507. I recognized the dates immediately. They were the same ones I had seen before. But then I noticed the final entry. The detective pointed to it. "Look at the time." I did. 2:15 a.m. Same as always. But the date was yesterday. I frowned. "But Brenner was arrested yesterday morning." "Yes." "So he couldn't have made that reservation." The detective nodded slowly. "That's correct." A cold feeling spread through my chest. "Then who did?" The detective didn't answer. Instead, he slid one last photo across the table. It was taken by the evidence team inside room 507. The desk, the laptop, and the screen. The hotel reservation page. Room 507. Guest name, David L. Harrow. Status, reservation confirmed. And in the corner of the screen, a small message box. A typed line investigators hadn't been able to explain. Just 6 words. Still checking in. Still waiting.